we want to know a little bit about your experience in the hobby before we kind of get into the product, because I think that's going to help us understand a little bit more about your philosophy and going forward. So, how long have you been in the hobby?
Well, since October 27, 1984.
Wow.
Yeah,
I feel like you've seen the hobby change a lot at that point then. Wow.
yeah,
Um,
of course. The only reason I remember that is it was my birthday. Birthday present, little 10-gallon tank like a lot of people get. The incandescent lights where you used to get to pick the colors, right?
yeah.
They get all hot and they'd explode if you got water on them, and that was the best lighting we had back then. Of course, I started with freshwater fish, um, and kind of progressed through that was all that was available where I grew up in North Dakota in the 80s. Um, so just kind of progressed through a lot of different types of freshwater fish. Got into African cichlids,
Oh,
and
wow.
then yeah, that's like a lot of people still are. People get pretty hardcore into that stuff, and that's where I really dug in and started collecting fish
Mhm.
and things like that. And there's the different focus on water chemistry that's different than a lot of other freshwater fish. So it took me in some other directions that kind of naturally led to marine aquariums.
That's
Uh,
actually pretty interesting. Yeah. So,
yeah,
is that what pushed you to kind of do a little bit more research into something like bacteria in general?
not necessarily at the time. It was more about just collecting things so back then, of course, there was no internet. You'd set up a tank and you might not think anyone would ever see it. And that was one thing that was kind of cool about everything back then. It was more pure, you didn't care. It was like it was entirely for your own enjoyment. And at least some, people like myself would obsess over things, and you'd have to go to the library or buy magazines to get, advanced information on this shit. And I was a kid, so that stuff was expensive, books even back then could be 40, $50 a piece if they were any good. So, there are a lot of trips to the library. I check out the same book like 3, 4 times. But but yeah, it was just, just not necessarily like bacteria or certainly not anything like that. The deep ecological stuff, but just kind of collecting and experimenting and playing around with stuff, getting a feel for what I liked.